Are you a real estate agent looking to move forward in your career and become an incredible success? Well, I've got something that you can get real excited about. How would you like to have 3 transactions in just one meeting? How about that? Okay, well, I've got a little story I want to share with you. For the last 12 years, I've been sitting down with individuals and couples doing educational meetings around real estate investing and passive income. And when I sit down with different people or couples, what I find that when they look for an amount or a goal in mind for financial freedom or passive income, most people will always say a similar number. They'll say 100 grand. If they had 100 grand in passive income, that's all they would ever need. Well, I went to a couple's house about 3 years ago, and I sat down with them, and Jack and Jill, okay, so those aren't their real names, but we sit down, had a conversation with them, and what I find is with people is they don't really think in terms of perpetual income from assets. What they think about really is the total amount. So say they have 400 grand, and they want that to become 500 grand or 600 grand, and they have an amount in mind where they'll feel like they could become financially free and start living a life of their dreams. Well, what I like to do in the conversations that I have is turn that amount into what would be considered like a passive income or a perpetual income. And typically, with financial assets, you could have about a 6% income from them. And so what I like to do is share with people what their assets could become in terms of passive income, and then how they can plan to move forward. So for example, with Jack and Jill, they both had about 400 grand in savings. So I was explaining how they could have that become a passive income at 6% if they were to do that now. So that would be about 24 grand each, okay? So 24. Okay. So when you add those two up, they're at about 48 grand a year in potential passive income if they were to retire today. Okay. Okay. Now when you look at their goal, 100 grand, they're short about 50 grand, okay, 52,000 they're short. So they're like, okay, they're planning to work for another 10 years and try to double these values. And I said, well, just wait a second, let's have a look at everything. So with their single family residence, they had quite a nice house, and I asked what it was worth, and it was worth about 850,000. And so I had the conversation with them and asked the right questions. Well, in 10 years, when you plan to retire, what's your lifestyle going to be like? What are you planning to do? And they said, well, they're planning to be out of the country probably half the year. So what they need to do is downsize to a condo. And then they could just lock up and go. And so I said, oh, okay, well, do you have any condos in the area that you really like? And they said, yeah, there's one down the street right now. It's about 250 grand. And we would be happy living in there. So I was like, okay, well, let's think about this. Do you have a mortgage on your house? And they're like, well, no, actually, we just paid it off. And I was like, well, that's really interesting. So you got all this equity, and you're not creating any perpetual income from this asset. So through the conversations, what happened was we also talked about the perpetual income that real estate could produce. And at the time, there was a triplex in their area that they liked, and it could produce about an 8% income off of the down payment. And so that would be a 48 grand a year in passive income if they were to buy that triplex and use a down payment. So here's the situation. They took the 850, right? They paid cash for the condo, right? They were left with the 600 for a down payment on a triplex, and they netted out 48 grand a year in passive income. And for their amazement, they actually had financial freedom right in front of them. So they did that, and they retired. And they were forever grateful that I sat down with them and I shared information and conversations around education, and I turned their asset amounts into what would be perpetual incomes and allowed them to go on and be financially free. So if you'd like to learn how to have these type of conversations with your clients, you can learn a lot more at sixfigureconversations.com. You can see from this example that one conversation led to 3 transactions: the sale of their house, the purchase of a triplex, and the purchase of a condo. So don't you see how that could help you become more successful as a real estate agent, to move forward in your career? Do you think those are the conversations you get real excited about? Because I know I do. So I just think you got to learn to earn. And I'll see you at sixfigureconversations.com. Later.